All right, I'm going to show you how to remove a broken bolt from pretty much anything. This happens to be on a Kubota 900 and I am working on the left knuckle. There is a bolt that will hold this pin in place. This is bent obviously, but there's a bolt that goes right in there, and all this does is hold that pin, the lower pin on the knuckle, in place. So let's say you're taking this apart and these are rusty, like I mentioned earlier, and you cannot get that bolt out and it snaps. So not a big deal because all that bolt is doing is holding in the pin. So you can drill out the old one, and you can either put a bolt with a nut on the back of it, or you could put a bolt, you could tap out the threads, drill it, tap out the threads, and put a bolt in there without a nut, right? So not the end of the day, but you're gonna have to go in there and drill out the old bolt that has snapped. And the way you do that for anything that you wanna drill out that's a bolt that has snapped, is you always wanna start with a bit that is half the size of the bolt, right? The threaded part of the bolt. So if the threaded part is a 1/4 inch, approximately 1/4 inch, you would start with an 1/8 inch bit and then work your way up in the increments of the bits that you have. So you're gonna start with an 1/8, you're gonna move up one, move up a 3rd one, and a 4th one. These are probably gonna go up by either 30 seconds or 64ths of an inch. And if you have a full set, it's real easy, because when you start with a 1/4 inch, or whatever size you're starting with, you just go up a size to the left that the holder has, so it's not too much work. You could also read the side of the bit and figure that out, but it's easier if you have a whole set like this. Get yourself, before you do this, get yourself a good set of bits. Lots of companies will sell bits made in China. You don't want to get those, obviously, because you're going to use them and they're just not going to work the second time you go to use them. So use them once, throw them away type bits. You want the nicer ones that have the hardened steel. And these are the ones that you can keep forever if you have a sharpener, especially because the bits don't really get dull on the sides. It's just the tips that get dull. So if you have a nice set of bits, you might pay more, but you can have them almost forever. And especially if you have a sharpener, you can just sharpen the tips, and then you're not going to have to replace them. They do snap, like if you get down to the smaller sizes and you have a hole you're drilling out. If you don't use oil, this is a key thing too when you drill, before you are going to replace anything. Always oil the bits, because that is going to give the bit the help it needs, not only to stay cool, right? So there's two problems when you drill. The bit becomes hot and it ruins the tip of the bit, or the bit gets hung up in the area you're drilling and snaps the bit. You don't want either of those things to happen. So this oil, which is just 530 or 10W30 motor oil, you can put in a little can, and you always want to put that on the tip of the bit before you put the bit in against the metal to start drilling. And if you see it start to get hot as you're drilling, you can pull the bit out and put a couple more squirts of oil on there, and it cools it off. Again, what you're doing there is keeping it cool and allowing it not to get caught up and snap, right? So either it's going to overheat and ruin the bit, or it's going to snap and the bit's obviously going to be ruined at that point, so you have to throw it away. So that's how you want to do it. So you're going to start with, like I said, half the size of the threaded area of the bolt. You're going to move up and move up and move up. And as you go through these different bits, you don't want to force the bit in there. You don't need to do that, especially on the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th bit. That is such a small amount of metal you're taking off. Just really let the bit, put the oil in the bit and let the bit do the work, and it will go really smooth. You'll end up with a hole just like that, right? And before I started, it was obviously a broken bolt in there, and you had to get that out. Okay, so that's what you want to do when you drill a broken bolt out, and you want to either replace it with a bolt and a nut, or you want to tap it with a tap. Okay, hope that's helpful to you, and that's about it.